If you want your Traxxas machine to go faster, or maybe you need to replace a worn or damaged electronic component, you need to watch this video. So here on the RC Driver YouTube channel and over on our website, rcdriver.com, we get a lot of questions from viewers asking how to make their truck faster, how to make their car faster. And a lot of those questions pertain to Traxxas owners. And there are a lot of Traxxas vehicles out there, so I could see why we get a lot of those questions. Now, there are certainly plenty of systems out there that you could check out, but if you're a true Traxxas fan, you probably want to stick with Traxxas products. So here's a secret that some people just don't know about, and maybe you missed it through some of the literature that came with your vehicle, or maybe you missed it on the website. But Traxxas has a link on their website to a program called the Power Up program, and it's a pretty neat program for anyone that's looking to make their car go faster or just update some old electronics or damaged electronics. It's really something you should check out. So what the Power Up program does is it allows you to take maybe your old radio system like this TQ here and trade it in for something newer like a TQI. Or maybe this system doesn't work anymore for whatever reason. Maybe you dropped it, I don't know. And you could trade it into Traxxas, damaged or not, and they'll send you a new system for 50% off the price of the new component, which is pretty cool. Now you could also do that with the electronic system in your car. You could take the speed controller and the motor, send it into Traxxas. Let's say you have a brush system like this one here, send it into Traxxas and you could get this VXL system, which is pretty neat. And it doesn't stop there. You could do that with many of the other electronic components, the speed controllers and motors that come with Traxxas vehicles. Even if you damaged it in some way and you want to get a new unit, you could trade it in and get a new system. There's a number of different power-up systems that they offer, so definitely check out the Power program once again. Like I said, there are 2 different radios, and they even do it with nitro engines, which is pretty cool. You can take an old Pro 15 engine and trade it in for a 3.3 system. So it's a pretty neat deal what they have going on. And like I said, a lot of people don't know about it, but this is why I'm making this video, to make you guys aware of what they have available. Now, as I said earlier, the reason why this video came about was I do get a lot of questions. And with my son's truck here, I think it was about time to upgrade the power system on it. It's got this brushed system in here, and it works just fine, but I could see him itching for a little bit more power, and that's why I'm definitely going to go with a brushless system, and Traxxas makes it really easy to switch over to this system. Now, as you can see here, I do have a brand new VXL-3S system here that I'm going to install on it, and luckily I have a good relationship with Traxxas, so I was able to get this system here to show you guys how to swap things out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through what it would be like to pull out your system out of your vehicle. I'm going to use this Bigfoot here as an example. I'll show you what to pull out, what you have to send back. Let's get to work. Obviously, every Traxxas vehicle is different, so pulling out your particular system is going to be a little bit different, but this will give you the basic idea of what needs to happen here in order to swap out your old brush system with the new VXL system when you do go through the Power Up program. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the speed controller wire out of the receiver, and I'll work on from there. So basically, with a lot of Traxxas systems, they have this protective receiver box, and it is a couple of steps to get it popped open in order to get the wire out. So first off, you need to take off this piece, and then you need to move on to taking the main part of the receiver box off. Usually it's a 2.0 and 2.5 millimeter hex driver that you're going to need for this process. It's pretty much the same on most of Traxxas vehicles. So just remove these, then pop the cap off and just kind of move it over to the side, and then locate your ESC signal wire. It's going to be in the number 2 slot, and then just pull your wire out through here. Next up, I'm going to take out the speed controller, and that with this particular car is 2 Phillips head screws. Just remove those, and now I'll be able to remove the speed controller. And you'll want to set your hardware screws aside, and then undo the bullet plugs. And now this is part of what you're going to have to send back here. You're going to have to send back the speed controller, make sure that the original battery plug is intact, make sure the original bullet plugs are intact, make sure your receiver wire is intact. Even if it's busted, you got to make sure everything is intact as it came from the factory. Now that that's out, I'll set that aside, and I'll move on to taking out the motor. And usually with a lot of the cars, with a rear transmission, it's good to take off the wheel to access the gear cover. Again, all the different vehicles are going to be unique to their own, but this will give you an idea of what you kind of need to do to get through this task of swapping everything out. With the wheel off, I'm going to take off the cover. That's just 2 screws here. It happens to use a Phillips head screw, so I'll just take that off with the Phillips head screw. And then the next step is to actually remove the pinion gear. You're going to want to keep the pinion gear because you're going to have to transfer that over to your new system. Pull that off, and then I can just remove the motor. Again, on this particular car, it's just 2 screws, Phillips head screws. I'm going to remove the bottom screw completely first because the top screw kind of sits behind the spur gear. And just unscrew that and you'll be able to take the motor out. And there it is, and this is how you have to send the motor back. Make sure the bolt plugs are on there. Make sure you keep your hardware from mounting the motor, keep the pinion gear, and this goes back as part of the Power Up program. Okay, so with our electronics out, basically you could head down to your local Traxxas authorized dealer and do the Power Up program through them, or you could go online, print out the forms, just do a quick search on the Traxxas website for Power Up. You'll be able to find the forms, just fill it out with what you're looking to power up to. Send off your old stuff and just wait for your new stuff to come in. So now it's time to install the new Velineon system, and this is how it comes. It comes in a pretty neat box, and of course it's packed really well from the factory. So let me just go over quickly what you get. So you do get the new motor, obviously. That's the whole point of this. So this is the Velineon motor here, and as you can see, it's got the nice protective guard on the back. It's already pre-wired. It'll make installation really easy. And then next up we have the speed controller itself, and here is the Velineon VXL-3S. So this is a 3S ready speed controller, and as you see, it has the wires. All you have to do is mate up the wires, blue to blue, yellow, and white, and so it makes everything nice and easy to plug in. There's that receiver wire that plugs into that number 2 channel, and then it has this accessory wire here. This just gets clipped in on the side, and then over here it does come with a mounting bracket, and this may be used in your particular vehicle, so just double check. If you have an issue mounting it, you may need to use this adapter plate that comes with it. And then in this little sleeve here, we've got some 2-sided tape and some new hardware along with an L-shaped Allen wrench to install it. So actually what these screws are the screws to hold down the speed controller, and then it has these 2 large flathead screws to secure the motor. All right, so let's start off with installing the motor in the vehicle. Again, it's really just put it in the same as it came out before. So we'll put it in with the wires facing up. You generally want the wires to be up. You don't want the wires to be down. One, because if the back of the vehicle does hit the ground, you chance ruining the wires. Number 2, the wires up top makes it easier to get over to the speed controller. And I am going to use the new hardware on here, so just got to pop this bag open, and I'll use these new motor screws. I like the Allen head screws much better than the Phillips screws that come with the truck. And actually, to access that, because the one screw is behind. Let me turn this thing around. I don't know why I didn't turn it around sooner. One screw is behind the spur gear here, so you're going to have to remove the spur gear in order to access that screw. Just slide off the slipper, pop that screw out, put the new screw in, and actually to reassemble the slipper, it's good to stand it up on the side so the slipper plate is positioned properly. Make sure it's keyed properly. Put your spur gear with back plate back on, put your spring back on, and then put your slipper nut back on. It's always good to tighten it down to where you think it was before. Make sure you keep an eye on where it was. And then just do your final check when you go out to run the vehicle. Now that the screw is swapped out, all right, so now I can install the motor, and I got to use a 2.0 driver to install the new motor screws. Simply just snug it up, back it off a little bit because we're gonna have to install the pinion gear. All right, now with both of them on, we could install the pinion gear again. Just slide that on. And make sure the teeth on the gear line up. You want them to be centered with each other. You don't want the pinion gear to be offset from the spur gear. You want to have as much teeth touching each other as possible, just to make sure that you get positive engagement on your gears. And then go ahead and set your gear mesh. Got a little movement in there. Now I could tighten everything down, reinstall the gear cover while I have it up on end. Now I can move over to installing the speed controller. What I'm going to do here first is run the speed controller wires through this little hole in the shock tower. Just make everything a little bit neater. And then I'll take my speed controller. And luckily I don't have to use a different mounting plate. This mounting plate's going to work just fine, but I will use the new longer screws to secure the speed controller. And I don't need the 2-sided tape that came with the speed controller since it is screwed in place. This 2-sided tape is only if you're adhering it to a car. It doesn't have a mount, but this particular car is supplied with mounts. So now the speed controller is screwed in. I could turn my attention to reinstalling install the new signal wire into the receiver. Just undo that, slip it through the top of the receiver box, plug it into the number 2 channel on the receiver, and just pop the receiver cover back on. And then actually what I'll do is I'll shove this extra receiver wire down in there, make sure it gets in there before I tighten any other screws down. I can put my receiver box screws back in, put the little receiver cover back on, then plug the brushless motor into the speed controller. And finally, Traxxas does give you instructions and paperwork to go along with it. There's some decals, and there's some instructions here that you definitely want to go through. A little card with some easy tips on setup, and then there's the full installation and setup instructions here as well. So you definitely want to go through that. Make sure everything is set up properly. Make sure you have your transmitter set up properly. Make sure you go through the setup programming and even the low voltage detection if you're running a lithium polymer battery. And once that's all done, you can head outside and go have some fun. And so there you have it, a super easy way to power up your vehicle using the Traxxas Power Up program. Take your old brush system out and get a new brushless system at a good value. I think it's a really good value. As you saw, it was easy to install, it's affordable, and you're sticking with Traxxas gear. I've had really good luck with Velineon systems. I think they work really well. I think they're really powerful. And you know what? I just got this Pro MT 4x4 in from Proline, and it came with this instruction sheet here that shows you how to use a Velineon system in their truck. So I think that goes to show you right there that this is a great system to upgrade to. I'm really excited to go outside and try this thing, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And I also have a feeling that this particular build isn't over yet. I think there's still more stuff I could do to this. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, hit the notifications button as well. Throw the video a like, and if you have a question or comment, throw it in the section below. And then finally, when you have some time, head over to rcdriver.com for some more RC information.